Her car wasn't in the driveway. That was the first lie the house whispered. Dry soil in the garden. A silver watch, left behind and never removed. I didn't confront her. I just started listening. Documenting. Preparing. She thought I'd never notice. But silence became my sharpest tool. Let me show you how it all unraveled, piece by piece. The clock on the dashboard read 4:17 p.m., Tuesday, and the sun sliced sharp angles across the lawn. She texted at noon, said she'd be home all day, fussing over her garden project. I stepped out of my sedan, briefcase in hand, and scanned the backyard. The raised beds were untouched, dry soil, no fresh dirt, trowel leaning against the shed, clean. No gloves on the porch. The air felt too still, like the house was holding its breath. Inside, the kitchen was dim, the only sound the faint hum of the fridge. Her silver watch sat on the counter, catching a sliver of light. Engraved, a gift from her father, she never took it off. I picked it up. The clasp was unlatched, loose, like she'd yanked it off in a rush. I turned it over, the second hand ticking steadily, and slipped it into my pocket. I moved through the house. Her laptop was on the dining table, screen dark, but the charger cord was gone. Her purse wasn't on the hook by the door. The fridge held her usual yogurt, half-eaten, dated yesterday. Upstairs, our bedroom carried a faint whiff of her old citrus perfume, the one she hadn't worn in years. Her running shoes, the ones she used daily last summer, weren't in the closet. She hadn't run in months. I sat on the bed's edge, the watch heavy in my pocket. Her laugh at breakfast replayed in my head, too bright, like she was performing. She'd reached for my hand, fingers cold, and said, "You're working too much, Dave." I'd nodded, half listening. Now, that line felt like it came from a script. The front door clicked open downstairs. "Dave." Her voice carried, too casual, followed by the jangle of keys, quick steps on the hardwood. I stood, pocketing the watch deeper. She appeared in the doorway, hair slightly mussed, wearing a navy jacket I didn't recognize. "You're home early," she said, her smile tight, eyes flicking to the nightstand where the watch usually rested. "Slow day," I said, holding her gaze. She nodded, brushing past me to the closet, hanging the jacket with careful precision, like she was measuring each move. She didn't ask about my day, didn't mention hers. I headed downstairs, poured a glass of water, and stood by the sink. The watch pressed against my thigh. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, but I was looking. Her phone lit up on the counter at 6:43 p.m., and the name wasn't one I knew. I was in the kitchen, chopping carrots for dinner, the knife's rhythm steady against the cutting board. The house smelled of garlic from the pan, and the radio played low, some old jazz tune we used to dance to in our 30s. She was upstairs, showering, the water running longer than usual. Her phone had been left face up, a habit she'd broken years ago. The screen flashed, "Mark, 2 minutes ago." No last name, no context. I kept chopping, but my eyes stayed on the phone until it went dark. The next morning, I left for the office early, 7:15 a.m. She was still in bed, claiming a headache, her voice muffled through the door. I drove my usual route, past the gas station and the diner where we'd grab coffee on weekends. But her car had been there yesterday, parked at that diner when I passed by at noon, during her garden project at home. I hadn't stopped then, just noted it, the way you note a crack in the windshield before it spreads. At my desk, I opened a new note on my phone, password protected, and typed, "Tuesday, for 17 p.m., car gone, watch on counter." Wednesday, 7:45 a.m., diner sighting, claimed headache. I added the phone notification, "Mark, 6:43 p.m." No speculation, just facts. The silver watch sat in my drawer at home, still unmentioned. I left it there last night, tucked beside old receipts after she went to bed. When I got home that evening, she was in the living room, scrolling on her laptop, the same citrus perfume lingering. "You're late," she said, not looking up. Her tone was light, but her fingers paused on the keys, waiting. "Traffic," I said, setting my briefcase down. I glanced at her phone, now face down on the couch. She'd changed her lock screen. Used to be a photo of us at the lake, now just a generic sunset. I didn't ask about it. Instead, I walked to the garage, pulled out a small notebook from my toolbox, and wrote the same details I'd typed earlier. Pen felt more permanent. She called from the living room, her voice sharper now. "Dave, you're acting weird. Everything okay?" It sounded like a challenge, not concern. I closed the notebook, slid it into a locked drawer with the watch, and stepped back inside. "Just tired," I said, meeting her eyes. She held my gaze for a second, then smiled, too quick, and went back to her screen. I poured a coffee, the same dark roast we'd shared for years, and stood by the window. The diner was a 5-minute drive. Mark's name echoed in my head. The notebook was open now, and I wasn't closing it. The receipt was folded twice and wedged between pages of a gardening magazine on the back porch. It slipped out when I moved the stack to find the hedge trimmers, fluttering down like a message from a place she didn't expect me to look. The paper was thin, from a boutique hotel 2 towns over. Room 214. One night. Check-in, Tuesday, 2:41 p.m. Check-out, Wednesday, 9:05 a.m. The name on the reservation read, M. Ellis. Mark. I held the receipt under the porch light, the ink faint near the top, like it had gotten damp. She hadn't mentioned any trip. No meeting, no errand. She'd claimed a headache that morning. I stepped inside, receipt folded in half now, and slid it into the back of my locked drawer, next to the silver watch. That evening, over a quiet dinner, frozen lasagna reheated, her idea, she asked how work had gone. Her voice was chipper, too smooth. Fine, I said. Slow. She nodded, sipping her wine. I might run errands tomorrow, she said casually. Library, grocery store. You need anything? Eggs, I said, not looking up. We're low. She tapped her fork against the plate. You seem distracted lately. Long days. Silence stretched. The jazz station hummed from the living room speakers. She leaned back, studied me like she was deciding whether to press. After dinner, she went upstairs. I rinsed the dishes, hands moving on muscle memory. Her phone, left charging on the kitchen island, buzzed once. Message preview. Still thinking about yesterday. No name. I locked the screen, placed the phone gently back in place. Upstairs, the shower turned on again. 2 nights in a row, longer than usual. I waited until the water stopped, gave it a few minutes, then walked into the bedroom. She stood by the window in her usual robe, hair damp from the shower. She smiled when she saw me, a little forced. Mind if I sleep early? She asked. Didn't get much rest last night. I nodded, walked to my side of the bed, and grabbed the book I wasn't reading. Sure. The light clicked off on her side first. Then mine. In the dark, the drawer under the bed was slightly ajar. I closed it with my foot. The watch. The receipt. One more night of silence. She asked me that Friday if I wanted to drive out to the farmer's market with her. Could be nice, she said, sipping from a mug she hadn't used in years, the one with a cartoon lemon and a crack down the handle. You always liked the peach guy. I nodded, closing the cupboard a little too carefully. Can't. Tom swinging by the house. Oh. Her eyebrows lifted. Tom from college? That's the one. She stared into her coffee. Didn't know you two still talked. We catch up. That was the end of it. She didn't press, and I didn't explain. When she left 20 minutes later, hair curled, that same navy jacket from Tuesday, a different purse, I watched her car back out from the upstairs window. Then I started rearranging things. First, I took the shared passwords we had taped in the home office drawer and shredded them, replacing the list with fake versions close enough to not trigger suspicion if she glanced. I moved the real ones to an encrypted drive. The safe combination was changed. Bank account alerts were forwarded to my work email. The house had 2 sets of spare keys in the foyer drawer. I replaced one set with decoys, wrong key shapes, wrong copies. Subtle, but effective. The silver watch, still in its drawer, went into a locked box with the hotel receipt. I moved the box to the garage's overhead storage, taped inside a hollow in the insulation panel. She wouldn't find it unless she gutted the wall. When Tom arrived that afternoon, we sat on the back patio like it was old times. He brought a 6-pack and his usual dry wit. You good? He asked eventually, after I mentioned the post-nup. I'm watching, I said. He sipped his beer. That watch, the one from her dad? She still wears it? She took it off Tuesday. Left it in the kitchen. Tom raised his eyebrows but said nothing. We talked contracts. Not for divorce yet, just structures, asset protection, contingencies. Tom had done this before. He wasn't judgmental, just sharp. He asked the right questions and took quiet notes. When she came home, we were still out back. She stepped onto the patio, sunglasses still on, holding a paper bag with a baguette poking out. Hi, Tom, she said with that voice she used on waiters. He stood, polite. Good to see you, Julia. She turned to me. You didn't tell me you were meeting about legal stuff. You didn't ask. Her smile thinned. Just seems sudden. I nodded. You were the one who wanted change. She didn't respond. The silence held longer than it should have. That night, she got into bed early, same as the night before. Said she was tired. Turned away before the lights went off. I stared at the ceiling. The space between us wasn't just emotional now. It was measured, defined, practiced. She didn't know what had changed, just that something had. She booked a dinner for us the following Friday. It's been a while since we dressed up, she said over her shoulder, casual, like it was her idea. Her earrings clicked as she leaned into the mirror that morning, adjusting her makeup though it was barely 8 a.m. Reservations at Arlene's. 8 sharp. That was her tell, trying too hard to look natural. Arlene's was expensive. We'd been once, years ago. Candlelight, small plates, too much empty space between tables. Not her usual pick. But it was his kind of place. Mark's. I said yes. That week, I watched her pace shift. A little extra care with her outfits. Her texts more guarded. She used to hum when she cooked. Now she worked in silence. The silver watch still hadn't reappeared. Friday came. She wore a black dress I hadn't seen since our last anniversary. Hair pinned up, a faint trace of that citrus perfume. She looked good. The kind of good meant to distract, not comfort. Dinner was lit low and staged. I let her talk. Let her pour wine and laugh too loud at quiet jokes. We ordered sea bass and risotto. Her eyes darted across the room now and then, like scanning for recognition. I've been thinking, she said as the plates were cleared, her fingers playing with the rim of her glass. We could get away for a weekend. Reset. Just us. I looked at her. Where would we go? She hesitated. Somewhere quiet. Near the coast, maybe. Like the place 2 towns over? I said. Boutique hotel. Room 214. She didn't move, but the color drained slightly from her cheeks. Her hands stilled. Then the practiced smile. What are you talking about? You said you had a headache that morning. She sipped her water. I did. I didn't respond. Just let it settle. The waiter came and went. Her fork stayed untouched. Outside, we walked slowly toward the car. She clutched her coat too tightly for the mild weather. In the garage at home, I paused before turning off the ignition. You wore your father's watch that night? She blinked. No. Why? I nodded. Thought I saw it on your wrist in a reflection. We went inside. She went straight upstairs. I stayed back, poured myself a glass of water. The drawer where I kept the watch still locked. In bed, she faced away, stiff under the covers. Dave, she said, after a while. Yeah. Did something happen? I didn't answer. She turned over. Because you've been different. I stood, walked to the window. You're sure you weren't wearing it? What difference does it make? She snapped. It's a watch. I didn't turn around. It's a gift, I said. That's the difference. She said nothing. The house stayed silent for a long time. Tom met me at a diner halfway between our houses. Nothing fancy. Vinyl booths, burnt coffee, a waitress who kept calling everyone Han. You sure you want to go this route? He asked, flipping through the manila folder I handed him. I'm not filing, I said. Just drawing the lines. Quietly. He nodded, skimmed the documents again. Asset protections. Beneficiary updates. Emergency account transfers. A living trust for the house. The post-nup reinforced. I'd left nothing to improvisation. She's smart, I added. Not reckless. But she's careful, usually. But lately careless. He gave a dry laugh. Smart people make the most convincing liars. Back home, I moved with precision. Financial logins changed. Paperwork double-checked and placed in my office safe. 2 installed a motion sensor security cam near the desk. Just the home office. Facing the desk. The place she used when she borrowed my laptop. Just in case. The next morning, I left early, but doubled back 10 minutes later and parked down the block. Watched the front windows. At 9:27 a.m., her silhouette passed by, laptop in hand. By 10:14, she left the house. Hair tied back. Flats instead of heels. Not dressed for errands. Later that week, I reviewed the camera's footage. She'd spent 34 minutes in my office. Opened the laptop, checked the drawer, then stared at the blank screen. She didn't type anything. Just sat. Thinking. That Friday, she mentioned him again. Casually. Like he was a footnote. Ran into someone from school, she said. Mark. You remember him? I kept my tone neutral. Vaguely. She nodded like it didn't matter. He runs a design firm now. Big client work. Still funny. Still. After dinner, I stepped into the garage. The lockbox with the watch and receipt was untouched. I added a third item, a printed screenshot. Text between her and a number saved as M. Not incriminating, just logistics. Times. Locations. One message. Wednesday still good. Back gate. Saturday morning, she asked if I wanted coffee. Her tone was soft, lighter. She wore a sweatshirt I hadn't seen in years. Her hair loose. "You're up early," I said. "Wanted to surprise you." I nodded. Took the mug. "Thanks." Tom called later. Voice low. "You sure you're not dragging this out?" "No," I said. "I'm documenting everything. Quietly. Thoroughly." He paused. "You ever think maybe you've already won?" I looked at the watch. Ticking steady. Still hers. Now mine. The neighborhood barbecue was always hosted by the Rutledges. Same string lights, same folding tables, same playlist from someone's ancient iPod. Julia wore a denim skirt and that soft cream blouse she used to save for our date nights. Her smile was polished. I scanning. We didn't drive together. I arrived 5 minutes early, helped Mark Rutledge with the grill. She came 10 minutes late, claiming traffic, even though it was a walkable 3 blocks. Halfway through the evening, I caught her in a conversation with Lisa from 2 doors down. Lisa looked confused, then surprised. Her eyes flicked over to me. Later, as I reached for a beer, Lisa approached. "I thought you two canceled your trip last month," she said quietly. I kept my tone flat. "We did." She nodded, watching Julia laugh from across the yard. She said it was lovely. Even mentioned a boutique hotel had gorgeous lighting. I didn't respond. Just took the beer, gave a short thanks, and moved on. Around 8:30, the fire pit was lit. Chairs circled in close. I sat 2 seats from Julia. Mark Rutledge asked about our anniversary plans. Said he'd heard we were doing something special. Julia smiled too fast. "Oh, we're still thinking. Maybe a coastal drive. A boutique hotel, maybe?" I said, sipping my drink. A few heads turned. The fire cracked. She chuckled. "If we find one that's not fully booked." Mark laughed. "You two always seem solid. Not many couples pull off that long-haul vibe." I didn't say anything. Just held her gaze a second longer than comfort allowed. Tom arrived late. Waved across the yard. Took a seat beside me. Quietly observed. When Julia excused herself to grab a drink, Tom leaned in. Lisa told me what she overheard. "She's lying to cover inconsistencies," I said. "But not with strangers. With the neighbors." He nodded. "It's unraveling." She returned and sat beside me. Her hand brushed mine. I didn't move. From across the circle, Lisa met my eyes. She didn't smile. Just offered the faintest nod. A silent acknowledgement. That night, Julia went to bed first. I stayed out back, staring at the dying coals. The silver watch sat inside, buried in a box that was almost full now. Sunday morning, I shut down access. It started with the Wi-Fi, new name, new password. She didn't ask why. Then the shared calendar vanished from her phone. Bank account split. I opened a new checking account, diverted my direct deposit. Our joint credit card was replaced with a solo line. By Monday, the garage code was changed. She messaged me, asking why it wasn't working. I replied, "Reset it. Security issue." No reply. Her face was pale when I got home that evening. She was in the kitchen, staring into the open fridge. "Did the power flicker today?" "No," I said, setting my briefcase down. "Why?" "The garage didn't open. And the coffee machine reset." I nodded. "Strange." Upstairs, I opened the closet and removed the watch box. It was heavier now, evidence stacked and layered. I didn't open it. Just moved it deeper, behind a row of old suits I hadn't worn in years. The next day, I found her at the dining table, a pile of mail beside her, a bill in her hand, her expression blank. "This says the electric is under your name now." "It always was," I said. "I just updated the account notifications." She folded the bill slowly. "You're making it hard to feel welcome here. You asked for space. I'm giving it." That night, she sat beside me on the couch, her phone in hand but screen dim. She kept glancing at me. "Do you want to talk?" she asked. "About us." I shrugged. "What's left to say?" She bit her lip. "I miss how it was." "How what was?" She didn't answer. I stood and walked to the back door, flicked the porch light on, then off again. A habit. A check. In the days that followed, she stopped cooking, stopped checking in. We moved in silence, passing in hallways like coworkers after a layoff. Thursday, I came home to find her standing at the safe in the office, arms crossed. "It says invalid code," she said. I stepped around her, took off my coat. It was changed. "Why?" "Sensitive material. Business files." She stared at me. "You're locking me out of our life." "No," I said. "You said you needed space." I respected that. I took mine too. She blinked, then turned, leaving the room without a word. That night, I heard her in the spare room. The kind of silence that carries something heavy. No sobs. Just the sound of someone realizing their leverage was gone. In the morning, the watch wasn't where I'd left it. Panicked, I checked the drawer. Still locked. Opened it. Everything intact. But on the dresser, she'd placed a note. For words, neatly written. You still have it. It happened on a Thursday. She waited until I came home, standing in the doorway like she used to when we were first married, before routine hardened our edges. The house was silent. Her arms were crossed, but her face was open. Can we talk? She asked. I hung my keys on the wall hook, shrugged off my jacket, and nodded once. In the kitchen, we sat at the table. No wine, no food, just the space between us. The clock ticked in the background, loud in the quiet. I want to understand what's happening, she said. You've changed. Everything's changed. And I feel like I'm bearing the consequences for this. You are, I said evenly. She blinked. For what? I stood, walked to the hallway, opened the drawer, retrieved the watch, placed it on the table between us. For this, I said, and what it represents. Her eyes flicked to the watch, then back to me. It's just a watch. No, I said. It's the one thing you never took off. Until the day you went to room 214. She looked away, then back. Her voice quieted. You've been watching me? I've been listening, recording, documenting. You made choices. I'm responding to them. She folded her hands in her lap, squeezing them tightly. You went through my phone? No. You left enough outside of it. The receipt in the magazine. The text on your laptop. The way you smiled when you mentioned his name. She reached for the watch. I stopped her with a slight shift of my hand. Not yet. Dave. You wanted honesty. Freedom. You demanded change. So I adapted. Quietly. Strategically. You thought I'd break. Instead, I rebuilt without you. She slumped slightly in the chair, exhaling hard. Her shoulders sagged under the weight of the moment. I never meant to fall for him, she said. It was a mistake. No. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This was a decision. A series of them. You didn't stumble into this. You built it, step by step. She flinched. I was lonely. And I was present. You just stopped seeing me. Every night I sat across from you at dinner, wondering where you'd gone. Turns out, you were already with him. Her hands trembled now. I didn't think you'd ever leave. I haven't, I said. You did. She looked down at the table, her voice barely audible. What now? I've spoken to Tom. Everything's documented. The post-nup is airtight. The agreement stands. If this ends, it ends as written. If you stay, it's on my terms. She inhaled sharply. And those are, no more lies. No more Mark. No more pretending. You want to keep this life. You stop living a life that isn't yours. And if I agree? I slid the watch toward her. Then earn it back. That includes this. She stared at it, but didn't touch it. I don't know if I can, she whispered. I stood, walked to the doorway, and paused. You taught me silence, I said. I'm using it. She stayed seated as I left the room. I walked down the hall, turned the porch light on and off, then sat alone in the living room, listening. No footsteps followed. No words. Just the ticking of the watch behind me. The next morning, the watch was gone. The note beside my coffee mug read, I'll be at my sister's. A few days. Nothing dramatic. No apology. No confrontation. Just an exit. I made breakfast anyway. 2 eggs, toast. I used to make extra for her. I didn't this time. The silence wasn't heavy now. Just full. By noon, I packed the rest of her things. Not all of it. Just enough to make space. The sentimental pieces stayed boxed, tucked in the attic. The closet felt lighter. So did the bathroom counter. Her perfume bottles gone. Her hairbrush. The robe still hung on the back of the door, like a ghost that hadn't decided to leave. That afternoon, I visited Tom. Handed over the last batch of documents. We didn't talk much. Just signed what needed signing. He glanced at me once and said, You're clear. Driving home, the house didn't feel like a memory. Just a space. Rooms. Furniture. History shelved, not erased. I passed the lake where we took that photo she framed, still hanging crooked in the hallway. I didn't fix it. I logged into the last of the accounts and removed her name. Utilities, streaming, emergency contacts. I left the shared playlists untouched. Let them shuffle into static. Even the one she'd titled Morning Vibes. I opened a drawer in the office, one I hadn't used in months, and dropped the engagement photo inside. shut it quietly, then turned off the overhead light and walked out. I didn't look back. Later that week, she texted, "Can we talk?" I read it. Didn't reply. Instead, I reset the spare bedroom. Clean sheets. Neutral bedding. No trace. Just a room again. The box in the garage, the one with the receipts, notes, backup files, was sealed and labeled with one word, archive. I lifted it once, briefly, then let it settle back into the storage rack. No need to revisit. The silver watch wasn't inside. She took it with her. Maybe to remember. Maybe to forget. Friday evening, I sat on the porch. Same seat. Same view. Only difference was the quiet. No motion behind the curtain. No second chair pulled out beside me. She hadn't asked to come back. I hadn't asked where she went. That door wasn't locked. But it wasn't open either. I deleted the backup folder that night. Not out of forgiveness. Just maintenance. No more notes. No more recordings. No need. At midnight, I stood in the hallway. The porch light flicked once. Then off. No footsteps. No return. The silence held.